Drew here, Frisco Tennis Shop. Just want to make a video discussing things that even professional stringers may disagree on. I've actually seen some pretty fun debates on these questions. So I just want to kind of give you my take and my opinion of these three questions. So the three things I want to talk about: does string color matter? I think it's a pretty debated subject. I'll give you my opinion. Should you string your mains and crosses differently? Obviously hybrids are popular, but even if it's the same string, there's some professionals who use the exact same main and cross who string their mains and crosses differently. Should you? And the other thing I want to talk about that comes up a lot is, should you use a tennis string dampener? There's a lot of pros that use a dampener, there's a lot of pros that don't. Do you need to use a dampener? What are the pros and cons of it? Again, these are all subjects that I think there's a debate on. I think it's a lot of fun, and in this video I'm going to talk about my opinion on those subjects. The first thing that people debate is, does tennis string color matter? I think the argument is that a string that's been dyed black has a little bit less slide and snap. Because I will say, like a string like Head Velocity, which is a multi-filament string, when I string the natural and the black, if I string them separately, I think if you play with them, you really wouldn't be able to tell the difference too much, or if at all. I do think when you're stringing it, I do feel like the natural string without that dye on it has a little bit more of a slickness to it. Again, very marginal. So maybe that would be the argument of, does string color matter? In my opinion, you have to be a pretty good tennis player to really tell the difference if I string with, say, Head Sonic Pro Black or Head Sonic Pro White, or Luxlon LU Power, the standard silver or blue. So it's going to be very marginal. So in short, in my view, does tennis string color matter? I think it looks really cool with the cosmetic. So I think string color matters as far, this is a Wilson Ultra. I think this black polyester string is going to look really cool on it. But does string color matter? My opinion, very marginal. Black may play a little slightly less powerful because of the slide and snap of the dye, but if it's the same string, same racket, same gauge, the difference is going to be very, very marginal with string color. The second question that comes up a lot is, should you string your mains and crosses different? And let me just say, first off, they do make tools, whether it's the Racket Tune app that you can get for pretty cheap in my view, that can test the sound of the string bed, and then you can have, if you're a professional stringer, like a Beers ERT 300, which is really cool. The second thing is, should you string your mains and crosses different? I usually recommend stringing it the same unless requested. You have people like Federer, Djokovic, who use hybrid stringing, so they have a main natural gut with a softer polyester. They string their natural gut higher because it's a main string that sets the tempo, and they have a poly string that is a little less lively that you can string lower. So as a general rule in the industry, polyesters you string a little bit lower because they are more inelastic, and softer strings you string, softer strings like multi-filament, synthetic gut, or natural gut, you can string a little bit higher because there's going to be more string movement, and it's just kind of rule of thumb. The reason why I usually recommend just stringing at the same tension, because it does get confusing, because your main strings are longer, your cross strings are shorter. Just by me stringing these crosses, you're seeing these mains, which you always string your mains first and then crosses. You're seeing these mains that were originally very easy to move, they're getting tighter. So obviously that static tension, the more I string it, is getting tighter and tighter. And there's another method I've read about. I'm not affiliated with them, it just seems kind of cool. I think it's called the Sergetti method. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it does take into account how on most rackets, every cross string is going to be a different length. So pulling the same tension on every cross string, like this cross string is longer than this cross string. So pulling, in this case, 55 pounds on it, it's going to play a little bit different than pulling 55 pounds on this cross string, so these two. So you get off into the weeds on that. So as a general rule, I like to say string it the same. If you do a hybrid, maybe the softer string go a few pounds higher. I never do, in my view, more than 5 pounds difference between crosses and mains, because I feel like I can put a little bit of undue stress on the racket. But overall, I would just say, test it out. At the point of contact, your mains are going to set the tempo of the string bed, and then your cross strings are going to determine how much those mains slide and snap at the point of contact. So that's my view. The rise of hybrid stringing has sort of changed things, where a lot of people do go a little bit higher on their softer cross string or softer string. But again, that's a little bit subjective. I think Alcaraz, I saw, uses RPM Blast, but he even does his mains slightly higher than the cross, even though it's the same string. Probably for the same thing, maybe allows those mains to move a little bit more. So I would say if you are experimenting, just keep the variables as constant as you can so you know what works best for your game when it comes to changing the string tension on mains and crosses. Another question that is subjective, that there's a lot of opinions on, is should you use a tennis string dampener? The main reason to use a dampener, in my view, is just basically the sound. That pinging sound can get a little bit annoying, and sometimes dampening that vibration and dampening that sound can be really cool. So the dampeners that you can use, the cheap ones are called like traditional dampeners or button dampeners. They just fit in the middle of the racket like so. So these are really cool because they will dampen the sound. They're actually usually going to be the cheaper options. There's a million different varieties of them. The downside of these, if you hit a mishit a little bit lower in the string bed, they may go flying on you. So you may have to take a timeout to go find your dampener is the downside of those. And then the ones that cost usually a little bit more, again, there's many variations of these, are the worm dampeners. These are going to go across all of the main strings here. You kind of weave it in and out. The International Tennis Federation rules you can put a dampener anywhere you want outside of the main string bed. So you can put it anywhere as long as you're not inside the string bed. So that's why usually most people, if not everyone, puts it on the lower part below the cross string. If it goes above that cross string, it's illegal. You can also put it on the top here, but the reason why most people don't put the dampeners on the top is because there's a lot of times you're going to be making contact up there, and hitting a dampener is going to mess with the path of the ball. So that's why most people put it on the bottom there. Okay, people who do use them, Djokovic, Nadal, Medvedev, Halep, Kvitova, Osaka, they all use dampeners on the rackets. So you're gonna see when they're playing dampener. I think Agassi back in the day used a rubber band. You can buy a bag of rubber bands, pretty cheap. You can just tie a basic knot, and that should help dampen the vibration and dampen the sound. People who do not use them, famously Federer. Federer used power pads though. I don't see those too often. You can pretty much use anything, a piece of old grip or leather just underneath here. That helps dampen the vibrations a little bit. But Federer didn't use it, Serena, Andy Murray, Konta, but should use a dampener. I'll leave it up to you. If you want to dampen the vibration and that sound, may be a good fit. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video on does string color matter? Should you string your mains and crosses different? Should use a dampener? These are all subjective questions. Like everything when it comes to tennis, it's a game that's different for every person, has their own unique game of what they like. So what works for you may not work for someone else and vice versa. So I definitely encourage you to test out what works for you. This has been Drew from Frisco Tennis Shop, and I hope to talk soon.